are they? Where do you go?
First Baptist.
So y'all don't have any service?
Yeah, they're having two, but they're spread out. The seats are spread out.
We have at my church Central. We have the seats spread out. The fellowship hall. If you're COVID worried about it, you can wear a mask.
You don't have to worry about the music either.
Don't have to worry about we're a cappella. Remember when Barney Fife sung a cappella?
Yeah, I do. It's just the last episode, in fact, last Friday.
Was that the episode?
He was singing
a cappella.
And they disguised his voice there.
Hey, I got you a Diet Coke
right.
there. Do you drink Diet Coke?
Mm-hmm. We drink mostly coffee, though, don't we?
Yeah, we drink. Who's got the best coffee?
Well, I miss our place.
The mill.
The mill.
Yeah, I like the mill. If you had to drink coffee without knowing where it came from,
I'd get a cup from McDonald's for $1.
You know, they've done better with their coffee.
Mm-hmm. Their coffee is rated, Consumers Report rates it #1.
But and the Lassiter's is good.
Mm-hmm.
And the mill is good. What about Bond Life?
Hadn't been there in a long time.
I hadn't either.
It's probably good.
Since this COVID.
Probably all the same.
Yeah. Starbucks is good.
No, I hate Starbucks.
What about Dunkin' Donuts?
It's not Dunkin' Donuts anymore. It's just Dunkin'. Leave the donuts off. It's just Dunkin'.
Wonder why they did that.
Well, they did it about 3 months ago, and you hadn't
I
caught up yet.
didn't even notice. Yeah. So it's just Dunkin'?
Dunkin'.
They change all the signs?
They are changing if they hadn't changed them already.
I had coming out of my bathroom Thursday morning, and I dropped my phone just slipped out of my hand, and I hit my toe.
Wow.
Just the one.
On the phone?
Look at that. It must have just went exactly like that. I mean, I can't even hardly move it. I guess I broke it. So, Tom, now you were just getting over COVID, right?
Well, I got over COVID. I got 3 weeks ago. I got what was it? What was it?
COVID fog?
Not COVID fog. Brain fog. Now, I've had 2 MRIs since then, and I didn't know my Social Security number. I couldn't write a signature.
Now, how would they be able to determine if you had brain fog?
Because you have brain fog. You just have it fogged. You just fogged up. You can't remember anything.
So when you say, tell me about your whole ordeal. But everybody's like, I'm not trying not to get it. I'm wearing a mask sometimes, and I try not to sneeze on people, and they don't sneeze on me.
Well, we got diagnosed.
So why did you even go get tested?
We decided to go get tested because everybody was doing it, I guess, didn't we? Are we on?
We're on TV.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. We're on.
Yeah.
We're on.
Okay,
camera.
well, that's why we're
Yeah,
just.
that's all right.
It seemed like it was a thing to do, and we.
You just went for no
went to
reason?
the health department, got tested.
Was you showing any symptoms?
Not a bit in the world.
Then why go?
We were positive.
But why go?
Well, good question. I guess just to relieve our minds.
Had you have not gone, would you have known?
Nothing would have happened. Nothing would have been different if we hadn't gone. But we went the second time, and was still positive. Mostly curious to see if we were negative. And then, of course, everybody in the community, they feel funny if you're positive. They're going to get away from you and things like that. But we were both positive. We had been in quarantine for 14 days. Couldn't leave. Couldn't go out of the house. We had to have the groceries delivered. So we were housebound, and Sandra had her loss of smell and taste. And we both had a headache a time or two, but we always have headaches. So I didn't think a lot about that. So anyway, the 14-day quarantine was pretty rough. And then the state sent us a letter and said we are released from quarantine, but we're still going to be tested negative if we had another test. We had a third test.
No, I said again.
We'd still be negative. We'd probably still. and may still be, positive. Still might be positive today. You just don't know.
You don't know.
But there's no reason to take a test. I think probably, in Bradley County, you've got, 2,000, 3,000 tested, and you probably got 50,000 that would be positive if they were tested. So I just don't understand the system that much, whether the system is accurate or not. But now this fog that I had was really serious, because I had to go have 2 MRIs, and let me tell you this funny thing.
Now, do you think this fog, you saying
that was real?
You got it from
COVID. My doctor said
BS.
No, my doctor said that the fog was a byproduct of the COVID-19, and a lot of people are seeing it. It goes away in 2 or 3 days. Mine didn't. Mine lasted probably 10 days or 2 weeks before it even started going away. But you'd be interested in the test I was given by the neurologist. I had to draw a clock with 12 hands. I had to draw the hands then to show 10 after 11. I showed 20 till 11.
Did you? Were you thinking you were doing it right?
I thought I was, but I wasn't. But those numbers 11 somehow, a doctor told me later, get you sort of fouled up. I couldn't text. I couldn't read a number.
When you couldn't text,
I couldn't read a number. I said, what does an M look like? If I was sending something with an M, what does a B look like? I couldn't do it. So then in the test I had to draw what I thought was a refrigerator. It was a container. And I was supposed to duplicate the drawing of it. And I did pretty good on that. That's the only thing I passed. And then I was asked to identify 3 animals. I missed 1, but I got 2 of them right. Hippopotamus and a rhinoceros. I'm still not pronouncing words right, but a rhinoceros. Yeah. So they look alike anyway, so I missed those 2. And then the tester gave me 5 words to mention twice in conversation. And then somewhere in the conversation later on, I was to remember those 5 words. I didn't remember 1. Didn't even try to, really. I just couldn't do it. Looked like it was effort I didn't need to do. Anyway, I miserably failed the test. Then that's where the test for, I guess, nerves, or if I had a stroke or something like that. I had the MRI for my neck and one for my head. The neck has been back. I've seen the results of it. The head hasn't been back yet, so I may still be a little crazy in the head.
You seem normal to me.
Not really. Well, yeah, I guess to you I would be.
Me,
to you I would. To you I would be. But anyway, it was an experience. It was a fun experience. And, a lot of people, and I wear a mask. We wear a mask if we go to the grocery store.
The whole time you're in there.
Yeah, and I don't like it. It's uncomfortable.
I don't wear a mask at all.
It's
except if I go into places that require it.
Well, the stores require it, so that's why.
And I guess I should, but
we do that. But, I see people wearing a mask driving a car alone, and I don't understand that either, why they do that.
I don't know.
But I guess to err on safety.
So they don't forget, maybe?
Well, not forget to put it on, or break the little band or something like that.
If I take NyQuil at night, if I can feel a little something coming on, I'll drink a little cup of NyQuil, and I get up in the morning and it's gone. But I'm a little fuzzy all day, so I see what you're saying.
I think it does make you fuzzy. I think Tylenol PM might make you fuzzy to an extent. Yeah. But I'm not a doctor. You're not a doctor, so we don't know.
Did you take any medicine for it at all?
No.
Because they didn't have any.
There was none to take.
You didn't take remdesivir or whatever?
No, there was none to take at all. If you had a headache, they said take Tylenol.
I'm a firm believer, unless you've got symptoms, unless there's some kind of dis-ease with you, you're better off not to go to the doctor, because they're going to find something that you're not in the average range with.
Or find something they need to run another test on.
Another test,
Yeah.
and another test, and all
Yeah.
the time you're getting all this, and you know, everybody's, you know, they want to see if you're fitting that range of.
I think everybody could be tested positive for something.
I mean, I know some people that are slightly nervous. They've been slightly nervous.
Well, I was
since
nervous when
I've
I went
known
through.
them.
I was nervous when I went through those tests. There's no way I could have passed those tests. If I'd been
No.
completely
Yeah.
normal, I couldn't have done it.
So I just don't know. I always go back to Poor Richard's Almanac when in there he's got a line, I've known more old drunks than I have old doctors.
Yeah, that's good philosophy. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, so I don't know if we can change any of this stuff that God's got planned anyway. I mean, if we go to the doctor or get physicals, I mean, did people...
Well, this COVID thing, it seems like it's so extreme. You have some who die, some who have to be on a ventilator and live and come out of it okay. And then some who are positive, and everybody's positive at one time, and they may have a headache, then they may have nothing wrong at all with them. It's just a crazy thing. And my doctor told me, said, we don't know enough about it.
So in other words, the best thing to do is if you're out in public, wear a mask.
If you got a headache, take an aspirin or something and
yeah.
forget about it.
Because it may not bother you, but it may bother the other person. So out of respect of humanity, wear a mask if you're in public.
Now, one of the one church event I went as a special guest, they were singing in a full choir, and I learned in conversation that when you sing, it generates the virus to an extent, and they learned at this choir that I was in that you don't sing. Because it just increases the, I guess
force.
It just
force or something.
Yeah, force blows out to you. So I'm not a singer anyway.
So I know people that I really respect that have known people that's had it and they've been very sick, and I don't want to in any way disparage the importance.
No, don't take away from it.
Of it. So I don't know.
It's better to err on safety and to be sure.
Yeah. And these schools that open up, that would be a tough decision.
That would be tough.
Can you imagine if you? I mean, me and you can decide whatever, but they've really got to take it upon themselves to come to a conclusion. That would be hard to do.
And wearing a mask in school, I don't see that that's really conducive for learning. I mean, it's bound to be uncomfortable.
It's got to be uncomfortable.
And it draws attention to the mask and draws attention away from education. Mm-hmm. So that's a hard decision to make.
It's a hard decision.
I just hate to make that decision.
I would hate to make it. And whatever decision somebody makes, I've got to say, I respect their decision.
Yes.
That's all I can say.
And some people will be right, some will be wrong.
Right.
Like Mayor Davis is under Tennessee state law, or the governor's proclamation, a county mayor can mandate masks or not. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't, but he does urge people to wear them. But he doesn't mandate it. Mayor.
And that doesn't mean that he doesn't believe in it.
That's true. He does. Oh, I've been with him. I know he believes in it. I know he believes in it. Mayor Carpenter in Chattanooga or Hamilton County is different. And you forget sometimes if you drive into Hamilton County or go to a market or something, you better have a mask on.
In other words, if you hear a city official say, we're not mandating masks, it doesn't mean that they don't believe that
Absolutely.
You need a mask, or they don't believe in it, or they're Republican or whatever.
Right.
They're just saying civil liberties, but we'd rather you wear a mask.
Yes. Prefer it for protection of our friends and our neighbors.
Because we know people
as well
that
as
have really
yourself.
got it, such as Tom Rowland, and he legitimately had it. So that's... Now, they're coming out with a vaccine supposedly in November, right?
Well, they're protecting vaccines in Russia and China, and I don't know if I'd take one or not.
You know, I don't know if it would be this.
I did take a flu shot this past week.
I always take a flu shot.
My doctor recommended a flu shot.
I always take a flu shot.
And I wasn't sure whether that would cause
make it worse. Because
nobody's
because this is so new.
Yeah, you don't know.
Where do you think you got it?
Well, I got it at I believe, at a church service that I was visiting, because several see, I can't even get my words out.
Well, I knew what you're saying.
Well, what I was saying,
Yeah.
several had it,
Yeah.
and 2 or 3 may have died from it. So I feel like that's where I got it, because I was exposed to all those people. But I'm not blaming them.
No.
But that's just where I believe I got it.
Now you look good.
Thank you.
You look just like you did 15 years ago.
20 years ago.
20
maybe.
years
Yeah,
ago.
maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
15.
Yeah. Okay, got a 15 then.
Did you you know, I remember the first time I remember Tom Rowland is I had gone to it was an election. That was when everybody went to the courthouse.
Yes.
And I was
Gave the election returns.
I was with Charlie McKenzie. And he
Talked
said,
to Charlie just last week.
Did you? Me and Charlie
Yeah.
friends for years, but he said, jump in the truck and we'll go to Tom's. He don't remember this, I'm sure, to Tom's, after a victory party or
Well,
something.
I'll tell you what else he did. Charlie did. He had his old truck.
Yep,
And
he's in the old truck.
And I was.
He's probably got the same truck.
Yeah, and I think I was walking on North Ocoee Street, and he pulled in to probably 8th Street and called me over and gave me a $5 donation.
That
was big time back. That's a long time ago.
And for Charlie,
And
that
for
was
Charlie,
like-
that
for
was big,
Charlie,
and
that
I
was big
appreciated
money.
that so
Yeah.
much. Mostly, I appreciated his support.
Yeah.
Not just his money, but
Yeah.
the support he had. And again, you know, sometimes I'll get bad on my words, and I can't get one out. So
That's all right.
excuse that.
But Charlie McKenzie, if Charlie McKenzie gave you $5, that'd be like anybody else giving you 50,000.
Absolutely, absolutely. Charlie's a good guy.
He's a great guy. He's a good guy. But anyway, we was at the Swiss house.
Yes.
The Swiss
yes.
house.
The Swiss house at the chalet.
So was that your first year?
That was the first one, the first victory party.
What'd you do prior to that?
In the radio, yeah. But that was our first victory party.
How old were you then?
I don't know.
20, 30?
Oh, probably 40 or 50.
So you were radio before that?
Yeah, a long time before that. Many years before that.
For how long?
So you didn't listen to the radio much, huh?
Not much. No, it was. I don't know. I don't know. I just didn't listen to it much. Of course, I was just.
Why not? Well, you were a
then,
kid.
Yeah.
But why?
So
why
prior
not?
to that, what were you? A radio announcer.
That's it. Yeah, I owned a radio station.
Like a Steve Hartline.
Well, I owned WCLE, and preceded Heartline on the morning show, basically.
Yeah.
Radio was a lot different back there. You had to have somebody present at all times, where right now, you know, Steve's letting it ride immobile.
So then you had to be there.
Had to be there all the time.
If you left the thing, nothing happened.
And the worst thing about the radio back in those days, if somebody didn't show in, you show up, and you were the boss, you had to go to work. Or Sunday night, Sunday afternoon, Saturday night.
Playing songs.
Yeah, I had to play records.
How did you know what songs to play, or did you, I mean?
Well, you had your records boxed up.
Did you have to, like right here, you had to put them on the?
Yeah, I had to put them on. You pretty well selected in advance what you're going to play for 2 or 3 hours.
Did you have to put the needle on?
Had to put the needle on. Yeah, absolutely. Then you cued it up by running the record backwards till the noise quit.
And then
you back off and you knew it was ready to go.
Did you have 2 record players?
Had 2.
Like WKRP and Cincinnati?
Yeah, some had 1, some had 2, but we always had 2.
Why 2? Because
so you have one. Yeah, because you're talking on the air, you're reading commercials. You're reading commercials, and you've got to have one ready to go.
So one's playing, and one's queued up.
Yeah, one's queued
you're
up, ready to
giving
go.
an announcement. Mm-hmm. That one's playing.
And then back in the old days, you had commercials that were called transcriptions that had to be queued up, and sometimes they would keep the transcription queued up on one turntable while you played records on the other one. These were the commercials, the way they went.
Now,
this was before taped commercials even.
Now, so you had to go Now, between the time you got one queued up, one's playing, you're giving an announcement. Then do you go and get another record out of the
and sometimes you had your live commercials, and you had your recorded commercials, and you might have to run 4 or 5 at a time on your tape player, and we call it a cassette player. And it got real modern at a time when you could stack them, like you could stack 4 records at the same time, or 4 commercials at the same time on the tape, and just turn them loose, and they just run right after the other. But
did you have to keep up with what the new hits were?
well, yeah. Also at that time, to be on the air, you had to be a third class engineer, and had a license. That's not required anymore.
You mean to be on the radio?
You had to have you had to be a third class engineer, and you had to keep up with the hits, keep up with your records.
How did you know the hits?
Well,
they send you a list?
Publications, and you had magazines and all.
Could you play anything you wanted?
I could.
Like on that show, Oh Brother, We're Far Out There, you had those people come in and sing into a can. You seen that movie?
I've seen that movie.
Yeah. Remember they came in and sang?
Never did that.
But you could have done that.
Could have done it if I wanted to. I was the boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd play the top 40 hits or something, I guess.
Yeah, keep it pretty well like that.
Seems like that would be nerve-wracking.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Was you on Sundays too?
I wasn't, but there was some. Usually Saturday and Sunday, you had religious programming and things a little bit different, and you had regular guys were off on Saturday and Sunday. I know there's one fellow years ago. He's passed away now. He did obituaries on
radio
on Saturday afternoon, and at one time, he would always say, "Here are the regrets." He called them regrets.
Regrets.
So one day, he didn't have any regrets, and he said, "I just regret that we don't have any regrets today." And so he sort of took that on his own.
So what about at night? Did you have somebody on at night?
You had to have somebody on at night. Yes.
You couldn't just sign off at 12 o'clock with.
Yeah, we signed off at 12 o'clock. But you had to have somebody going till 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you didn't stay on. And so in the mornings you got there what? 5 o'clock or something?
5 o'clock.
You get up what time then?
I'd get up at 3:30 or 4, work on news stories. You had to write my own news.
So you had to go to bed at 5.
Well, 8 maybe.
8.
That was always a good excuse not to do something at night you didn't want to.
So the radio was.
If you look at WKRP,
I watched that show.
That was
the
way it went.
That's
the way it went.
Where was your studio at?
We started out on Ocoee Street at Hoskins Land Company,
which is now
33 Ocoee Street. Bill Brown's office.
Bill
now.
Brown. No, let's see.
Well, Bill Brown's
or
office.
Was that Eddie Botts' building?
No, that wasn't Eddie's building. He wasn't
Richard
there.
Banks.
No, he
You're
wasn't.
talking about on the corner.
I was on the corner,
Okay.
yeah. And then went upstairs to 27 Ocoee Street. Not 27, 70-something Ocoee Street. Upstairs over the old National School of Business. And then we moved to...
Did you have to have radio antennas there?
How
did they do that?
We had two-way radios for news.
But I mean the radio antenna that reached everybody.
Oh, no, we had... Our transmitter was out in the country. Not really out in the country.
When you say transmitter, I'm thinking
transmitter
antenna.
had the antenna, yeah.
See,
the transmitter had the antenna.
You say transmitter, I'm thinking antenna.
Yeah, well, antenna, transmitter all goes together. Weeks Road is where the most recent
I remember
one for WCLE transmitter. But we had to, well, in later days, and we didn't have that to start with, we had to transmit our signal, which was the modern way, to the transmitter. From the station.
How did that?
But
go
before we
through?
did that, we had to do it with a telephone line. And then on WCLE AM years ago, the power had to be low power before sundown, and then it's sun up, sun down. It had to be low power. At sun up, the station could increase its power, and you did that with a couple of switches the engineer had worked out.
Boy, it sounds complicated.
It was. Then you would forget to do it sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'd cheat
Yeah.
and raise the power when you weren't supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was more to it then.
A lot more to it. Yes. A lot more to it. Everything's automated now.
So it was more live then.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we were heavy on local news. We broke several national news stories on the station. Funny thing, Jack Hoskins and I, Jack was at the station, and we had won a national news award, and we were to go to Chicago and receive the award. And so we were flying up to Chicago and then going back that afternoon. So we were country boys, and we go to the hotel, Chicago, and we're looking around to see where we go, and we saw a lot of teletype writers. We thought it was the radio station people. Well, it turned out it wasn't the radio people. We were involved in the conversation, but it was folks that were doing timeshares in Florida, and they were keeping it all up to date with the teletype. So we quickly got out of there and went to the right place.
I don't know if I'd have told that.
Well, that's all right. That was after it's over with. But a lot of our international news stories we broke when Hank Snow came for a concert during the Militia Gibson
I remember that.
event. We found out that he was an abused child. And so that made national news. And then by being at the right place at the right time, going by the police station and the dispatcher to find out what news was happening overnight, trying to think of the guy the sheriff from Walking Tall. Pusser.
Buford Pusser.
Yeah, he got killed in a wreck, and I picked that up from the teletype from the police station, and that, of course, made national news.
What town was he from?
He was from West Tennessee.
Or was it Middle Tennessee?
No, it was West Tennessee.
Walking Tall.
Walking Tall. McNairy County.
I don't know
McNairy
where
County.
that's at.
Yeah, it's way over in West Tennessee.
Like midway, not on I-75.
Yeah, no, not already on that.
So the radio, how did you get to starting the radio station?
Well,
you don't accidentally open up a radio station.
No, I started on a 50,000 watt station in high school in Shreveport, Louisiana, on KWKH, which was the big station.
Is
at the
that where
time.
you were from, Louisiana?
Well, I'll give you that history in just a minute.
Okay.
But it was the only thing you did at that station. They had the networks, just like the TV does today. And the only thing you do is make a live station break. And then they had, you probably don't remember the Louisiana Hayride, which Elvis Presley was on and several folks.
I've seen it on videos.
Yes. And that was the station, that was the KWKH station. But I wasn't a native of Shreveport, but my daddy and my granddaddy were in the hotel business, resort hotel business. And so in growing up, I would live about 2 years because my daddy would set up the hotel to the bookkeeping and all, to the standards that my grandfather wanted. So as a result, it would take about 2 years to do that. So I moved around a lot in that period of time. I mean, I moved around a whole lot. Probably, I guess I could count 19 schools I went to.
So you weren't from anywhere?
No, I was born in Florida. and born in a hotel, in fact.
But you weren't rooted anywhere
No,
until
no,
you were.
no. Not till I got real, sort of rooted in Bradley County.
And how did that come about?
Well, I was working in Sweetwater, Tennessee, at a station.
How did you get to there?
I went to there from Quitman, Georgia, owning a station in Quitman.
You owned equipment.
Owned a station in Quitman, a small station that couldn't.
But how did you end up with that one? I want to go deep.
Well, working in Knoxville, a friend of mine who was in the radio business as well.
Because you wanted to be in the radio.
We decided we wanted to buy a radio station.
Mm-hmm.
So we bought.
How old are you then?
Oh, I was probably 30, maybe less. But we wanted to own a radio station, so we bought this little station, hocked everything we had, bought the station, and realized two families couldn't make a living in that station. So I started looking around. I went to Sweetwater, Tennessee, and then Carl Hoskins, who owned WCLE, gave me an offer for about $10 more a week.
But you owned the station in Sweetwater?
No, I didn't own that station.
Oh, okay, you just worked there.
Just worked there.
And so you met Carl Hoskins.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you meet him?
He owned the station, and and Carl's in the real estate.
He was
business.
a big deal.
Oh, he was a big deal. He was, and when if he told you something, that's the way it was. That's the way it was going to be. Yeah, Carl was solid as he could be.
So he offered you a job at WCLA.
Yeah, and then Jack Hoskins, who was Carl's nephew from Harlan, Kentucky, who got Loretta Lynn on the air for the first time.
She sung in his can.
Yeah, his can.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was his claim to fame, and then Jack became the general manager, and then he retired, and I became the general manager of the station before we bought it.
Did he just say, "Oh, I want to sell this"?
Well, anything's, as you know, anything's for sale at a price. Yeah. Except so many times you don't want a price; you just want to do something for the community.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that. But
there's some more of that brain fog.
Yeah, but there's another intermediate guy who actually bought the station from the Hoskins. And he made me the general manager to work at the station. And he was an absentee manager. He lived out of state, in fact. And so this was the station the FM station that was WQLS. It's now WSY. This was, and in fact, I played the first country music song on that FM station, which is now WSY, before it was ever made. And they thought, boy, FM, you shouldn't play that on FM. You shouldn't play country on an FM station.
Because FM was modern.
And again, excuse me for getting
FM was modern or pop?
Well, yes, it was elevator music. And
FM?
You just never, background music, you just never heard of country music on FM.
See, all that confuses me. When you say AM and FM, that is so far over my head, I can't even, it's just, I don't even know what that means.
Well, FM is frequency modulation.
See, it means nothing.
That don't mean anything to me either.
I just can't.
Not really.
I have no clue.
Yeah. And then while at the station, I did news stories for the Knoxville News Sentinel and the Chattanooga Times.
WCLA.
At WCLA. Because we were making news stories, and it was just logical that we would go on with them and duplicate their news stories. So we did that.
But then you finally bought the WCLE from the guy.
Yeah, we bought it from Jim, I can't even think of his last name, from Athens, Tennessee. And we bought it from him, and then they bought it from another owner who bought it from Steve Hartline.
I see.
And he does have a nice studio right now.
He does.
Some of the paint's not too good.
Yeah.
Dries
well, he's got one of the nicest studios in Cleveland, Tennessee.
Well, yeah, I can say that. I would design it a little bit differently, but
Yeah. But he,
she didn't ask me.
they did a good job, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
It is nice.
I mean,
Nice
he
for
does
him.
a good job.
Yeah.
So you finally retired, and after you were you still on? Did you still own WCLE when you became mayor, or had you already sold it?
Had not sold it at the time, but sold it right after that.
Like 6 months or 5
Probably
years?
2 years. Yeah, probably 2 years.
So did you run both? You were mayor.
Well, I
and
did while I was mayor. Yeah.
So
I still did a morning show while I was mayor for.
So by then you were a seasoned.
Time to do one or the other.
But you were a seasoned radio. You could handle both.
Yeah.
I guess.
Now, when I first ran for office, my campaign slogan was, "I'm in touch," because being in the news business.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That was a good slogan.
That was a good slogan.
Yeah.
And so, and I was in touch.
You were.
Mm-hmm.
You won handily, if I remember.
I did.
And I don't know if you were contested.
I had 2 opponents at the first time.
Yeah, but after you won, I don't believe.
Oh, I had an opponent or 2 at times. Sometimes I had no opponent, and other times I had one.
It was almost irrelevant, though, right?
I would think so, but
I
I,
mean,
certainly respect those people who
Sure.
ran against me.
Sure. They just made it.
It was nice. It's always a good feeling when you don't have an opponent.
But you were mayor for how long?
Since 1991 to 2018.
So
28 years.
28 years.
Mm-hmm.
The mayor of one city for 28 years.
And at that point, I was the longest serving mayor in Tennessee, we thought. It turned out I was the second longest because mayor of Alcoa, Tennessee, had been there about 35 years. There may have been a time where his service was interrupted, and I would be the longest serving in the state. But anyway, and I was elected president of the Tennessee Municipal League on 2 occasions, and mayor of the year on one occasion, and served on the executive committee and the board of directors for several years. I enjoyed very much. It put me in touch of our competition and put us in touch of what things were going on during the state of Tennessee.
Are you a radio guy or a mayor?
I'm a mayor right now.
I mean, in your mind, which one are you?
Mayor. Yeah, mayor.
I'll have to say, I don't know of anybody, not one person, not one single person, does not think everything of Tom Rowland.
So
and I'm being serious.
So what do they think?
That you're just the best mayor we've ever had.
As somebody said, the best money can buy.
Now that may be.
Cartwright may have said that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
But I enjoyed when I ran for mayor, I had some goals that I set, and they've all been realized except one, and that was Amtrak rail service. And I did become the co-chair of the Amtrak initiative for the U.S., along with the mayor of. He was in Virginia. Anyway, he was the mayor of a town in Virginia, and so we went on the road, so to speak.
I remember that. Yeah.
And we had one thing that we did accomplish from Amtrak, or the National Rail Service, was the fact that if a new rail service was to be built, it would be through East Tennessee. But the problem we had, even with Congress allocating more money for rail service, equipment was so old they had to eat that up by buying new equipment. So we couldn't get the new service going. But we did accomplish that much, that if there was a new rail line, that it would go through Washington, D.C., Upper East Tennessee, Lower East Tennessee, and down through Atlanta.
Now, when you say a new rail, you mean
establish a new line, because
were they going to run on top of the existing?
No, they
railroad?
would. Yeah, they had the Amtrak uses the same that use existing railroad tracks.
See, that's way over my head.
They use existing tracks.
I mean, we have railroad come through Cleveland.
Yes, it would come right through
But the
Norfolk
railroad
Southern.
does too. So what's the difference?
Well, it would be the same track,
So what's
not
the
at the
point?
same time. Well, so now you got passenger service.
Well, can't this railroad have passengers?
Well, they can have passenger service, but
But
you
they don't.
got competition because a passenger train can go 5 miles an hour faster than a freight train.
Because of
And
the
then
weight.
and then they make money with their you see the cars, how many cars you have
Yeah.
on a freight train. And
And they can't do both.
well,
I guess.
they can do both. There's have you ever heard of the combination on the Wabash Cannonball? That's an
No.
old Roy Acuff song, and it's a
I remember
combination, a combination railroad, a combination with passenger cars and freight cars.
Weren't they always like that?
No, but that's out of the picture now. They don't do that anymore.
So you're saying Amtrak would bring just passengers,
Just passengers
just in a railroad
and mail,
car?
probably mail.
Now, why is that not a great idea?
I think it's an excellent idea. It's a great idea.
I mean, so what's the holdup?
The holdup is money. Let me give you an example. Sandra and I went to Washington, D.C., to New York City with Mayor Giuliani just after 9/11.
Who was a good mayor too?
He was a good mayor, still a good guy.
Yeah.
So going on the train at Union Station in Washington to Pennsylvania Station in New York City was actually quicker than flying. The time you go through the airport and all that stuff. I mean, it was.
How fast does it go?
Well, probably they'll go 80 to 90 miles an hour.
That's fast
That's
enough.
that's a railroad car that's in good shape, a train that's in good shape.
And that's fast enough.
And
isn't
then the speed also dictates your rail service on what kind of rails you've got. You've got A rails, B rails, and an A rail would be a main line that you can open it up.
Now, what's the point of people being able to ride on the railroad? I mean, I guess if I was going to go to Chicago this weekend, I could get on the Amtrak at Chattanooga, and they could drive me straight there, and it has 2 stops. And I guess
Well, it would have more than 2 stops. It'd probably stop at any station. Anybody that could buy 2 tickets, they'd stop at it. But it doesn't slow you down really.
But
It moves on.
logistically, you would have,
Logistically, it's better than flying.
yeah, and you could make it better
Mm-hmm.
if everybody that was riding it was agreeable to ride 30 miles. You know, I mean, you wouldn't have to stop between here. You could say Chattanooga to Knoxville to Chicago. Or
Well, when I had a part in bringing red clay about as a state park, and I had proposed to the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum to run a line from Red Clay up to Cleveland, at the Cleveland Depot, for tourist purposes. And they agreed to that at the time, but we couldn't get the rail. The passenger service wouldn't open it up to let us do it, because that's where they make their money, and they're not going to have somebody stop and let a passenger train, little excursion train, go through. But I thought that'd be an excellent idea for tourism.
Now, when you say Red Clay State Park, I always remember. See, I don't remember. I remember the Nilly Bipper was there.
Nilly Bipper Art Show was there
for years.
Yeah. I had some good times at Red Clay. I was chairman of the Red Clay Association.
What year was that? Because I remember
it was the 1970s. Ray Blanton was the governor for the.
What was it prior to that?
It was just a park.
Well,
Well, the Burger Beer Company wanted to buy a brewery or manufacture a brewery because of the fresh water that was at the park. Colonel James Corn wanted it to be preserved as a park someday, so he bought the property and preserved it so the beer company couldn't.
Out of his own.
At his own, but he did recover it. He did sell it to the state, at no profit, but he sold it at what?
So when the Nilly Bipper was there, did Colonel Corn own it?
I would think Colonel Corn probably. I think it's probably already gone to the park, to state property, at that time.
At that time.
Mm-hmm. But we had at our kickoff, I guess you'd call it, the grand opening.
Which was when?
Well, Governor Blanton was governor for the groundbreaking. Governor Alexander was governor for the actually dedication of the park. But at one time, while the park was being developed, a fellow named Gary Lawson, who was our first park ranger, lived in Polk County. He was a park ranger, and he was sort of looking at the development of the park. He's super.
So while it was
state owned it at that time, but he called me one day and asked me, could I go to the airport and pick up the chief, the Western Band chief, who at that time was chairman of Phillips Petroleum Company, and he said, I can't go because the Eastern Band chief is there, and I just want him to meet each other. They didn't get along at all. So anyway, I went to.
What did he look like?
I don't remember. He's
I mean, he didn't have feathers.
No,
on,
no,
it was just like.
No, that's another story on the feathers.
Yeah.
But I went to the airport and I said, Chief, I welcome. I introduced myself to everybody. And I said, glad you're here. I said, the Eastern Band Chief Bushyhead is here, and he'll be glad to see you. I said, well, we'll just come back another time. They got the plane left.
God, they were that
Oh, yeah.
bad blood.
They were very bad blood. Because of the Trail of Tears, the Eastern Band, evolved over in North Carolina, western North Carolina, and some of them are called drugstore Indians because they were posed for pictures and all like that.
I've had that pose. I've got.
Yeah, I know you have.
Yeah.
But anyway, they get along fine now. We burned the bridges, and they did the eternal flame and dedicated.
Burning right now.
Yeah, it didn't burn for a while because it'd go out, but gas company finally got it going okay. But on the stage, Chief Iron Eyes Cody.
When you say the stage.
On the stage, not the stage coach, but the stage where we were staging the celebration.
When it was opening?
When it was opening. And everybody came out of the woodwork. Everybody wanted to be a part of the celebration. So Chief Iron Eyes Cody, he's the one that the Keep America Beautiful picture depicts of the Indian looking over the landfill.
Yeah.
And has a tear in his eye.
Yeah, he was Italian, I believe.
He was Italian. He wasn't real Indian.
Yeah.
You've learned your history.
I've learned my history.
But he presented each chief, which at that time it evolved into Chief Mankiller, who was the chief for the Western Band, Chief Wilma Mankiller. And the chief of the Eastern Band was still Chief Bushyhead, but a different Bushyhead. And they said, we have a head feathers to present to each chief. And one of the chiefs spoke up and said, well, that's a nice suggestion, nice offer, but the Cherokees didn't wear feathers like that. So that was an embarrassing thing as well, too.
How did they wear them?
Well, they didn't wear feathers. They just didn't wear those big feather headdress.
Now, I've watched a little bit about the Indians, and my understanding is Cherokee weren't the first ones here. It was the Utes or something like that.
Yeah, I think they were actually originally. It may not have been Native Americans. They may have come from Germany or somewhere.
What was that? The Cherokee supposedly ran out this other tribe.
Well, they ran out a lot of. My background has a little Choctaw in it, and Choctaw and Cherokee didn't get along at all.
Yeah.
They didn't get along. At one time, during the development of Red Clay State Park, you didn't even mention anything about being a Choctaw, not around the Cherokees.
Racism is the same thing where evidently everybody's just
pops up
happens.
everywhere.
Pops up everywhere. no matter what it is.
But I guess there are probably just a very few tribes of Indians who really got along.
Now, there's one tribe out west that they never did get them out. I don't know what tribe that is, but they never did leave.
Well, the Pueblos, they were the mountain dwellers, you know.
I think that might have been the ones.
And
They
I
never
think that
did
was
get
them.
them
They just stayed in their place all the
But
time.
you know what we've done to the Indians and moved them out? That's as bad as anything can get, isn't it?
It is. And when they discovered gold in their land,
Yeah.
they would move them on, you know.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing happened when the equipment started to move in to actually make the land, build the buildings on the land.
Now, when you're talking about, is that in Rott's time? You ever read that book?
Mr. Rott?
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's when you're talking about 19.
No, I'm talking about in the 70s
Okay.
when we were building Red Clay State Park.
Yeah.
And you're going to confuse me and don't forget
Well,
what
I
I'm
had
talking
the,
about.
yeah. Dumb and Dumber.
Anyway, a friend of mine was on the State Historic Commission, and she was a lady, and we were at the park as they were getting ready to design the houses, replicas of the villages. And there was one house that had 3 walls that was an original Cherokee house. Cherokees didn't live in teepees. They lived in houses. As you can see, the Chief Van House,
Van House, yeah.
is a mansion.
Yeah.
So anyway, I told her Barbara Irvin was the lady, and she was from Bradley County. And I said, you know, there's some rocks here that were actually placed by the Cherokee because they hadn't been removed. They're the foundations for the house.
Yeah.
And I said, that'd be a good souvenir to have. So we didn't have cell phones, so she went somewhere and called Nashville and came back, and the ranger said, well, we were instructed to just bulldoze everything down, but we can have those rocks if you want them. So the rocks that she had, the rocks that we found, she had the ranger deliver half to me and half to her. And I have them at a hidden place now, but a prominent place. And I had these rocks, and I went to the Hermitage, and President Jackson was well, of course he wasn't selling it, but the Hermitage was selling sprigs of ivy, 2 for 50 cents in a little box. And I thought I was going to grow some over my rocks.
Yeah.
So I bought my ivy, and I put it over the rocks, some of the rocks, and nothing happened. It was just dormant. It didn't die, didn't grow. And Colonel Corn said, it's not going to do anything because you're pushing the good and the bad.
Oh my goodness.
With President Jackson and the
Yeah.
Cherokee Indian, and the rocks representing the Cherokee, and President Jackson representing the ivy. He says, take your ivy and reset it out. It'll grow. And I did, and it did. I've got it all over the place.
Was he serious?
Yes, he was serious. It didn't grow. The
Now,
2 little sprigs just lay there.
Now that Colonel Corn, was he?
Colonel Corn was former mayor of Cleveland. He was a city judge. He was an historian. He owned the chalet.
He's the one Eddie Carr worked for.
Yes.
Early on.
Yes.
And his son, Donna Zabel, and
yeah, and he was just such a good guy.
yeah, Eddie says he's a great
He was
guy.
real good.
Yeah.
And in fact, the chairman of the board of the petroleum company, who didn't get along with the Indians at all, didn't get along with his fellow Indians, was indicted on a federal charge, and the charge was something to do with campaign donations with one of our presidents. And Colonel Corn had a way with words, and so he sent a letter, and I have a copy of it, and the letter says, "I couldn't think of anybody nicer to be indicted than you." And then, speaking of words, after we dedicated Red Clay, Eddie Cartwright was county executive, and I received a telegram from President Reagan. I had a friend in the White House that I could get these little telegrams from, so I received a telegram to congratulate everybody on coming together, the Eastern Band and the Western Band. So in the telegram, it said, "Congratulations on your," get what the word was, "on the powwow. Congratulations on your powwow at Red Clay, Tennessee." And very quickly, and I had Eddie Cartwright. I said, "Eddie, you're the mayor. You're the county executive. Read the letter. You can read the letter on stage." And the Cherokees saying, "We don't call them powwows, and we'd rather just say something else." So I just had Eddie word it to, "We're having a meeting or a conclave." So anyway, the Associated Press picked up the story, and it said something to the effect that cowboy and Indian movie actor still living in the old days of powwows and cowboys and Indians.
Well, that's what I would have called it.
And that record, the telegram, the copy of that telegram is at the Red Clay State Park at the museum today. And it says powwow.
Instead of meeting. And who wrote the letter?
President Reagan, or somebody wrote it for him, of course. It was a telegram.
Yeah. And it said powwow.
It said powwow, and I'm going to sip some water.
Yeah, you have the Diet Coke there.
No, that's good enough.
You want some water?
That's good. It's got it.
Here's you some water. No, I've drunk out of it. Drink a Diet Coke.
Anyways, a lot of interesting things on Red Clay because...
I won't charge you.
Oh, thank you.
So, now, what year was it dedicated? Do you remember?
I'm thinking it was 79.
So probably. The Nilly Bipper, they were having the
Yeah, they had events every year. Nilly Bipper Art Show. It went on for several years.
I went there every year with my grandmother, Laverne. She'd sell her art.
Mm-hmm.
You'd walk through and at that time, it was actually, if I'm not mistaken, it was actually across the road, and you'd walk through the woods. Am I wrong?
Well, probably because she was selling her products. They had to be across the roadway because I don't think anything is supposed to be sold on the park itself.
Was selling it. It was all like a flea market.
Yeah, but it's probably across the road.
Which was gravel.
Now.
Which was gravel at the time, and I remember there was a band there, and they were playing the latest songs that were out, which was the Eagles. And why I remember that, I have no idea.
Because you like the Eagles.
It was just significant. I don't know.
There is a grave near Red Clay, right outside the border, that is the grave of Sleeping Rabbit, an Indian. And making several trips to the University of Tennessee and Department of Conservation of the state to actually prove that this was the last eastern capital of the Cherokee Nation. That was a hard thing to prove. They weren't buying into it.
Oh, you mean you couldn't just say it?
No, you couldn't say it. So we went to the Department of Conservation in Nashville, and Governor Dunn, Winfield Dunn, was the governor at the time, and he came across, and the people from the University of Tennessee, we mentioned Sleeping Rabbit, and they had a map and had a drawing of Sleeping Rabbit where he was buried. They said, well, according to what we learned, that Sleeping Rabbit was buried just right outside the perimeter of Red Clay. So that tells us that that's the place.
of the last council grant.
Yes, but we understand later that Sleeping Rabbit wasn't even buried there. but anyway, it makes a good story.
But that is the last council grant, right?
The last council grant of the last Eastern Capitol. Yeah. Now, the Capitol House itself, where they did their business, their government business, all the sides were open so everybody could hear what was going on.
So they decided.
That was the first non-sunshine law we had.
Now they decided at that meeting, powwow,
Mm-hmm.
to give in.
To agree that that was the last Eastern Capitol. They just wanted some extra proof, and that came about.
But I mean, the Indians, when they met there and had the meeting,
Well,
they agreed to what?
when they had their business meeting, their government meetings.
But they agreed all of their meetings.
Yeah, all their government
That was
meetings.
like the Church of God
Well, it was more like the city council or a county commission meeting. But they had to have open walls so everybody could hear what was going on. That was that was a sunshine law.
Yeah. Even they were doing that.
Yeah. But now, some of the Indians who came from Tahlequah, Oklahoma, the third generation, maybe fourth generation back, they said if, many of them told us this, they would stand on the property, especially where the spring was, and they would say, we can visualize where the soldiers were gathering up to remove the Indians because gold was discovered. But we could, from our forefathers, we knew where every rock and ridge was. And we could pretty well tell you while we were on the ridges and the rocks that that's where they were. That everybody passed it down generation. And then at Flint Springs, there's a song, Home Sweet Home. And there's a marker in there that it was written by Thomas, I can't think of his name right now, it's on the marker. But he...
Is that at the school?
Well, it's near the school, the old school. But it's where you make the old highway comes in, comes back out. Yeah. The marker's there. But he was held prisoner illegally by the state militia because he was in Tennessee, but he was held by state of Georgia. They didn't extradite him, they just carried him on back. So anyway, he had time to write the song Home Sweet Home, and that's where that song was written. And there's an well, I don't either, but there's an historical marker that tells that whole story.
Now, did you have a big interest in Indians and red clay, or was it just the thing to do?
Chamber of Commerce had a committee called the Red Clay Committee, subcommittee. And I'd heard about it. And so it seems like they would put anybody on that committee just to fill I think M.C. Hedrick may have been chairman at that time of the chamber. He said, you want to be you want to be chairman of the Red Clay Committee? Yeah, I guess so. What does it mean? So then we started learning about it, and Colonel Corn told me that there are a lot of rich people on Lookout Mountain that had the Red Clay Cherokee Association that didn't do anything about it. Said, I'm going to take all the paperwork and make you chairman. Made Sandra treasurer, I believe, and had all the offices going in there. And just take it over because I think you'll do something about it. So that's where I got the interest in. We started. It was a long fight.
Red Clay State Park. I don't know how much it's visited.
At one time it's the most visited state park or historical area in the state of Tennessee, and one of the most visited in the nation. Now, when the park first was visualized, I had grandeur thoughts of let's put restaurants in there. Let's make it like a state park is sometimes. Maybe put in some rides. Yeah. But I found out quickly it was an historic area.
And I believe that was the right call, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, it had to be.
Yeah.
For state law. But it was interesting because there was so many people fighting us.
But you did this for, not for Cleveland or Bradley County. You just,
Well, I was challenged. I was put on that committee by the Chamber of Commerce.
as the
And-
mayor.
No, I wasn't mayor at the time.
Oh, you weren't mayor?
No, I was
Oh,
just.
this is even prior to that?
Yeah, this prior to
I
that.
thought this was, you were talking about.
No.
Oh.
Oh, Red Clay all took place after that. But it was interesting. It got more interesting as the day went on.
We can go down there right now today, and there'll be people there and having a picnic, and the bathrooms are clean, and the air conditioning's on, and the grass is mowed.
Yeah, and they have a new at the visitor center. They have a new video.
I've watched the video.
Right.
I hadn't watched the new one.
Well, the new one's a little quicker than the old one. And it's amazing how people just, you'll find 10, 12 people all the time. They're
Oh, yeah,
ready
I know
to watch the video.
It's real cool.
And all of the artifacts that were donated. I mean, they came out of the woodwork. Everybody I've got Indian, all that stuff like that, arrowheads, and Bobby Taylor at Merchants Bank used one of his vaults that we donated, put everything in that was donated, and then of course later it was all sorted out on what was necessary and what wasn't necessary.
But that interests me. That's prior to being the mayor.
Yes, I was just a person on the Chamber of Commerce committee.
As mayor, what was your biggest accomplishment?
Probably the General Aviation Airport. That was one of my goals. And
I would say that would be a real big accomplishment, obviously.
and
Probably the hardest.
it was the hardest, absolutely the hardest. Nobody realized the difference between general aviation and commercial aviation.
If you was to tell me how hard it was, I wouldn't believe it.
It was very hard. On one occasion, Steve Wright and Jerry Bohannon at the chamber, we went to a community meeting, invited to come to, and we were almost ambushed. It was the site the airport's in now wasn't the site that was suggested at one time, and I mean, it was. I thought we was going to get hugged. It was terrible. They were just up in air against it like everything. In fact, we had to have a deputy sheriff take our car out.
A conspiracy or what?
No, this thought, well, it's going to take farmland and all that, Go take good. We don't want an airport in our backyard, and you got one of the nicest subdivisions anywhere right in the backyard. It doesn't bother anybody that way.
As nice a houses as anywhere.
Yes, very nice, and more coming up. Coming up. And I watched a video that the Tennessee Aeronautics Commission made of cows. Planes would be flying low over where cows were grazing, and the cows would never look up. It didn't bother them. But when a train went by, they'd look up at that train. I guess they had more vibration there,
if
but
you're going to eat them, why do you care how they're?
it don't matter what they're thinking about, do you?
But that was was the airport. Is it envisioned to have restaurants around it, or is this?
No, it's general aviation. It's people who do industry people. One of the
Now, why can't I go over there and get on Delta? Obviously, the runway's not big, right?
The runway is big enough. Yeah, the runway is big. We have Delta charter jets all the time.
What can you not fly on?
Well, you couldn't fly on a 747.
How much more would it have to be?
Let's say if the President of the United States came in, he couldn't fly on the 747 Air Force One, but he could fly on the 737.
Wow,
which is a smaller. And if you noticed in a lot of the news stories, the president has been flying on the smaller Air Force One. It's still Air Force One
because they've all got the same situation.
because they have. It takes
And he'll come out and go in the hangar and give a speech.
Yeah, same thing. Because the space is limited. But
What's is it the length of the runway?
length of the runway,
So what's the length of the runway here?
6,200 feet,
6,200.
and it was 3,300 feet.
And so to fly to have the 747 on it, how long does it have to
At least 9,000, I would say, to
be?
be safe. Yeah.
Half again as
Well, you gotta be safe. You've got to have enough space that if you had to abort a takeoff.
Now, how do you know all this stuff when you say we're going to get an airport? I mean, you know nothing about planes at the time, right?
I did know something about the planes.
Was you in the Air Force?
I was in the Air Force, but that had nothing to do with
Yeah.
it. But we have a major industry, one of our largest employers, who I won't tell because I would want them to tell it if they wanted to, and they may never tell it. But as mayor told me that we'll never come to Cleveland unless we have this airport. And it was in the talking stage right then. Now, this industry is a big user of the airport. For on-time parts deliveries, this is important. It's very important. You can hold up a whole assembly line manufacturing products, parts, when you have a line down.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So you got to have those parts. What the philosophy is, and we learned it. We traveled to Dalton. We traveled to different places. I took one county commissioner, took anybody that would go, to show them what good airports meant to the community. And I even had one say, I'll tell you that story in just a minute about couldn't believe how quick you could fly. But in a manufacturing setting, if you have a plant manager, what they usually do, they fly to the airport, and instead of going to the plant and wasting all that time, plant manager and certain employees will come to the airport for a conference room and do the business. And they're on the way and going to another town.
Which explains the boardroom there.
Yeah, the boardroom is very important.
Boy, yeah.
And it's used considerably too. But one of the selling points I had was the University of Alabama at Birmingham Air Ambulance, a little Citation jet, would come in and bring, probably 2 patients a day, heart patients, to Cleveland. And they had to stop because of insurance, because of the old runway, the old airport runway. So they couldn't do it anymore, which means that if you were a heart patient and you were at the local hospital, you would have to be packaged to go to the ambulance, an ambulance to Chattanooga, 30 minutes if you're lucky, and then be undone and then repackaged, as they call it, repackaged to the airplane going to Birmingham. So 3 or 4 times you'd have to be taken off life support and redone, and that was dangerous. Lost a lot of people. So I had one county commissioner who's passed away now. He said, "Well, how long does it really take you to do these things?" I said, "Well, to fly to Birmingham was 26 minutes." He said, "Oh, you can't tell me that." And I said, "Well, to drive to Cleveland, to Chattanooga Airport, it's 30 or 40 minutes depending on traffic. Yeah. And it's a controlled airport, which means you have to get space approval and all that to go, and then you had to still go to Birmingham." And I said, "This way you can be at Birmingham without being taken off of life support, but one time."
Right, yeah.
And he said, he laughed at me and said, "You mean to tell me you can go to Birmingham in 26 minutes? I said, "Yeah, maybe faster sometimes." He never believed that. Never believed that at all. So we dealt with that mentality of not just an airport for business purposes. And, you know, people would say it's for the rich man. It may be for the rich man. The rich man is providing jobs. You know, I've never known a poor man to provide a lot of jobs.
No.
So let the rich man enjoy the convenience of the airport and provide jobs, because that's what it's all about. And that was the purpose of the airport, to provide jobs.
So it wasn't just one reason. It was safety.
There's a lot of reasons. Safety, absolutely safety. And then there was a North Lee School right by the old airport, you know.
Yeah.
And that was a dangerous situation because of the short runway. Jerry Lee Lewis, singer,
Yeah.
he has a converted DC-3. You saw the DC-3 we had last September, I believe.
I know
At
nothing
the-
about the plane.
Okay.
And I was on the first plane that landed at the New Airport.
Yes, you were in
I
the.
was you on there?
No, I wasn't on there, but you were there.
I
Got your picture out
yeah.
there. I know that.
Cost me $2,000.
Yeah, supposed to be 1,000.
I took my youngest boy.
Okay, that's it then.
You know, we had our picture taken out in front of it. We was all
Joe
standing-
Stamper was there.
Joe Stamper.
Mm-hmm.
They had our picture taken. We was all standing here, and they sent me a nice copy. And they'd moved everybody around.
Well, this DC-3 that Jerry Lee Lewis has as an entertainer, he flew into he had a concert in Cleveland. Flew in for the night.
Cleveland, Tennessee.
Yes, spent the night.
God, when was that?
2 times he came in the concert. One was in 1969, and one was in the 70s, early 70s. But anyway, they were at the airport, and he was talking to the news media, and I was there. Sandra was there, and one of the pilots, they had 2 pilots, he looked sort of beleaguered a little bit, and he said, "Mr. Lewis, I don't want to take your passengers on yet. We're just going to taxi out." So we're a little concerned about this airport. So we're going to taxi out a minute and take a look at it. So they did, just the 2 pilots. And before the passengers came on, he came back and he said, "Well, we've got some things in our favor. Number one, we're low on fuel. They were going to Cincinnati, so we're lightweight. That's an advantage." And he said, "And this airport has a little hill, a little bank on it." And said, "I think we can take off and sort of catapult over it," his exact words. And if you remember, you couldn't see one
Right,
side from
yeah,
the other
yeah.
side because
Had a little, like
because
a
the hump
football, like a
had the
football
hump
field.
had the hump. So anyway, they got off safely, got it off okay. But I thought that was a funny observation that they'd have a little catapult and they're low on fuel.
Now, how does the airport fund itself?
Well, that was another argument we had to prove. And one argument we had to prove to the public that it wasn't taking general tax money for the airport. Aviation pays for itself because of fuel sales. And under federal law, the fuel tax for aviation has to be only used for aviation purposes. When we get all these grants and all the grants that came through at the beginning, that was all fuel tax money that's put into a pot nationwide that's paid for airports and airport improvements.
So if you go over there and you fly a plane and you fill up there because they're selling them the gas.
Yes, you want to.
So somebody's bringing gas to that place all the time.
Oh yeah,
You had to figure that out.
Yeah, you've got your trucks out there that are pumping gasoline, and they're gonna buy.
Where do they bring it from?
It's Shell.
Aviation fuel.
It's aviation fuel, yeah.
It's not coming from Dalton. It's coming from.
Well, I don't know where it's coming from. It's coming from probably a lot of places, Chattanooga maybe, but they fill our pumps, our trucks up, our tanks up, and then when you fly, you go out to the runway or to the tarmac and take your fuel on that way. Makes it convenient. You don't have to taxi to the fuel place. They come to you.
And I see. And so the guy that runs that, I forget his name.
Mark Fedler.
So he's paid by, that's all not taxpayer, that's all from aviation and fuel sales?
Well, I won't say that probably some of his salary doesn't come from city taxpayers, but it's like any other business. It's all in a pot, but basically all of your airport money comes from.
I don't know of
fuel
anybody
sales.
that would disagree that now that the airport's there, that it wasn't the best, one of the best things.
I think it is.
I mean, that's obvious.
Absolutely.
And it's not been any trouble. It's not been any negative at all.
Nobody, the noise doesn't bother anybody. Even, you and I were out there one day when a
There, yeah.
pretty big jet came in
Didn't hear nothing.
and didn't hear a thing in the world. Everybody was happy when
Everybody's happy.
when they-
No problem.
Yeah.
I even built a hangar out there for Mark Johnson parties people.
Yeah.
But
And we have a new hangar that was a spec hangar. You know, you use spec building.
yeah.
And Mr. Quayle, who's a brother of Vice President Dan Quayle, is the guy that built that hangar. He lives in Cleveland.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, spec
So
hangar,
you're
and it's
telling me
already
Dan Quayle's
Dan Quayle's brother,
the
Vice President.
potato guy
Yeah, but it couldn't spell potato
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
lives in Cleveland.
Yes.
I can't believe it.
Yes. And he built
What's
this,
his name?
Mr. Quayle.
I just can't believe it.
And he,
Half brother.
no, a full brother, but he built the,
Where does he live at?
I'm not sure, but he's here all the time.
What's
See
he
him,
do?
see him quite a bit. I'm not sure. I think he's a good builder of hangars.
What does he look like?
It's hard to describe. Nice looking man. But
So Dan Quayle.
but now the airport authority bought the hangar from him
Now back
at
up.
a good
Now
price,
back up.
and it's
Now
all
back-
it's
now
in.
back up. For
it's-
the layman
mhm.
like me, when you say the airport authority,
The,
who's
the
that?
governing body of the airport, 5 members. I'm one of them.
And
I'm
who
vice
deems-
chairman.
Who deems that?
They're appointed by the city council.
All right, so the city council says we're going to appoint
Five
an
member.
airport authority,
Mhm.
and so they port. So when you hear on the news the plane crash and the
Well, we're not going to hear a
authorities
plane
looking at-
crash. We're not going to hear that.
But if you did, they say I always say that the airplane authority is looking into it.
No, that's the FAA,
Okay, that's different.
and that's different.
That's different.
They look in
All
everything.
y'all are is
Just run the airport.
yeah.
Try to make money.
So if I ride my bicycle.
And you use the waiting room, and
I'll
you
go into the
you
waiting
know,
room. I'll
sometimes
use the
pick
bathroom,
the
and I'll go get
and
a
sometimes
cup.
get the candy bar,
That's right. And I'll drink a cup
Mhm.
there, and I'll
and you don't spend a dime.
grab a bottle of water when I leave.
But somebody
Somebody
might
who's
be
paying for that?
might be building a building for you that has been attracted to the airport.
But who's paying for that bottle of water? I guess somebody buying the gas. Now, according to Alan Jones, and I'm sure he's right, Marco Rubio was at that airport.
He was at the airport.
2 or 3
Yes,
different
he
times.
refueled at that.
And I also happen to know that I'm not supposed to know that Donald Trump Jr. was at that airport.
I was there when he was.
twice.
I was there one time when he was there.
What describe that?
Well, they set up the little motorcade. He was going out to.
That place nobody knows about.
Yeah, nobody knows about it. Alan's house.
So we're
And they
Where was you at?
see. I heard he's coming in. I just want to go out there, so I just went out there.
where was
And
you sitting?
I wasn't sitting anywhere. I was just walking around.
At
There
the airport?
was about 4 or 5 cars that made up his little convoy, and they were parked at the airport.
No.
And
So you were there when he was leaving?
there when he was leaving, flying in to go to Creek Ridge. But now he was running late, so I didn't stay for him to be there. But I saw him getting ready. The Secret Service was there, of course.
You
And
didn't stay to see?
no, I had things to do. But Secret Service was wondering who I was. I was mayor at the time,
So the Secret
and
Service,
the city police were there. They knew who I was. So
Chattanooga City,
no,
Secret
no.
Service?
Well,
Or whoever.
they were from a lot of places
Now, why would they watch him? Just because?
because he's a member of the president's family.
immediate family.
Mhm.
If you're a cousin, it doesn't count.
No, I don't think that counts. But immediate family gets the protection.
So you didn't see him.
No, I didn't see him. I saw pictures
Yeah.
after he left.
Is he tall?
Oh, he's sort of tall, yeah.
Taller than me?
Had a little beard. Yeah, anybody's taller than you. Yeah,
Some are.
yeah.
I'm 2 inches shorter than the average man.
2 inches shorter.
That's not much. But anyway, the airport's a great thing.
I think it
Obviously.
is. I think it is.
But that can't be the thing I remember. I was on the planning commission.
And you did a good job. I hate to say it, you did a good
I
job
did a
on the
good
planning
job.
commission.
I
You
did a
did.
good
You knew what you were talking
I
about.
let everybody have their say. A lot of times there was.
A lot of times you knew what they were going to say,
Yeah,
what
but
you
you
were going to
gotta
say,
let-
but you had their say.
I felt like they needed to have their say, and I tried to make it quick.
And I hated for you to leave the planning
I
commission.
hated to leave, but see, I think I got on there when I was 25, and I left when I was 53.
Did Tim Henderson replace you?
No, Tim was long gone.
Okay.
Ben Barry, I think.
Okay.
replaced him.
Tim was there when I was.
Yeah, no, he was long gone.
Okay.
But you would try to work things out prior to.
Well, I would.
You did your homework.
I did. I thought that was
You
very.
did your
I thought it was
homework.
important to do that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought.
Not that you swayed anybody, but you.
Well, I may have.
Well, if you did, it was very indirect.
Well, I tried to be indirect. Yeah.
But it was.
If I thought it was the right thing to do, I would try
yeah,
to get support
yeah.
for that.
Or at least. Now, was that under a small mayor? What do they call it?
Well,
Strong
strong mayor,
mayor.
small mayor. The when I first went into office, it was the mayor and 4 commissioners. Each commissioner,
Who is the commissioner?
Kenneth Tinsley. Let me go back with Kenneth just a minute. Steve Radaman was one,
Remember Steve?
but Kenneth Tinsley, I was not in public office, and Kenneth Tinsley announced very quickly, abruptly, that he was resigning his position as Commissioner of Fire and Recreation. And the city council, or the city commission, it was a city commission then instead of council, appointed me as commissioner 2 days after this happened.
Why did he?
He took a job
Where at?
and worked for the city.
At doing what?
He was a safety inspector, I believe. But that was okay to do that back then.
Yeah.
So
a commissioner. Now that wasn't
now
a councilman.
no, each commissioner was over, like Mitchell Isle was police commissioner.
I remember that.
All right, each commissioner had one area that he was completely in charge. He did all the hiring, all the firing, or whatever.
The buck stopped there.
Yeah, Buck stopped there. And so I was appointed Commissioner of Fire, Parks, and Recreation. And I served 6 months. Mayor Bill Schultz was the mayor.
Yeah.
And Bradley Central.
I remember him.
But
D. Frisbee. Remember D.
D. Frisbee, yeah.
How was he related to Mayor Schultz?
I'm not sure. Just not sure. But anyway, I got about just before time to get your paperwork in to run for office. Mayor Schultz came to me at the radio station and asked me would I run for mayor. And I said, well, I hadn't thought about it. We need to pray about this a little bit and talk about it and discuss it. And he said, well, you only have about like 3 days to qualify. Get your qualification papers in. So I decided to run, and I did, and that's when I ran the first time. So I'd been commissioner for 6 months before I was mayor. And then we had a lot of people concerned in the community that under the commission form of government, which was mostly unheard of at the time, there weren't many there anymore,
Was the commission form was not a common thing in state?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
It was a rare thing.
It was very rare, and you could have every commissioner and mayor could live a block from each other. You know,
So
there was
the
no
idea,
districts, no districts.
The idea was everybody wasn't represented,
Right.
which I almost disagree with. But go ahead.
Well, I do too, but I appointed a charter study commission just because everybody was hollering about it to see what what they'd come up with.
Who did you appoint?
I don't remember who all appointed. Probably 7 members, maybe more than 7.
Prior to that, you were the strong mayor.
I was a strong mayor.
Now, what did the strong mayor do?
Well, he had a vote, and the mayor today doesn't have a vote.
That's pretty strong.
Yeah, that's pretty strong. So anyway, the Charter Study Commission recommended through the state a form of government, which the voters adopted. There has to be a referendum.
So everybody's arguing we need to be a commission.
So then there has to be a referendum.
But wait a minute, everybody said, okay, we need to have a commission form. So you form a task force to study it.
Mm-hmm.
They recommended. After they studied it, they actually recommended.
They recommended it, and then it was put on the table for the legislature to decide if they wanted to approve this or not. Then
So
the voters had to approve it.
So the Tennessee legislator, had to agree whether or not Cleveland could go to that point.
That's right.
And so they said, okay, then they had to have a referendum.
Then the vote. That's right. Once they agreed with a form of government, and the form that was generally accepted across the state, the legislature had to approve it on a referendum, and it was approved. And then it takes place. I think it took place maybe almost a year.
Pass me that chocolate.
You want a chocolate?
Yeah.
So those are good ones.
Yeah, have you one.
So the legislature approved it by referendum, and then it passed, and that's the way it is now. So now there's 2 councilmen at large. Now don't be selecting.
Go ahead.
That's not the one I want. I want that's one. No, that's not the one I want. That's one.
Yeah,
So now there are 2 at large and 5 districts. You know, they live in their district, and 2 at large can live anywhere.
Did you agree with that new form?
I did not. I see its advantages to an extent, but I'm not sure I completely agree with it.
But everybody at state of Tennessee was under that form.
Most of them were.
So generally everybody liked it.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
a minute.
I don't know what kind of this is there.
So, all right, so they voted it in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you make the transition?
Well,
You're no longer, because there's a big transition there.
I'm gonna have to chew while I eat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, transition had to be established for everybody to take office at certain times. For instance, when I was elected, that's 4-year terms. I got a 5-year term on my second term to line up with Kevin.
Kevin. I forgot to unplug the phone.
So anyway, to get everybody on staggered terms, and that's where it worked out. Then a city manager was hired. We've had.
How long was it before the city manager was hired after the city became council based?
Probably 90. I think 94 was when George Wood was appointed city.
I remember him.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when Cleveland was going through that, and Cleveland actually really did want to go to that new form.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't.
No, the majority of the people.
Yeah, they wanted it.
Well, in fact, these are pretty good
They are
for
good.
breakfast. I said at the time, I was trying to appear fairly neutral, but I said it's another form of bureaucracy between the elected people we elect when you hire somebody.
Oh, I see.
Follow
So
that?
the commission, yeah. So the commission based, you could go to the commissioner. Council based, you had to go to somebody before. So it was another level.
Mm-hmm. A bureaucracy.
Not good or bad, but another level. Right?
And it can be changed.
Is anybody still under the commissioner?
I don't know of any. There are probably some, but I don't know.
I mean, it'd be hard to change that
Anyway.
again, and maybe it doesn't need.
Then on
to
some
be.
of them, the mayor is elected with a council, and the mayor. This is where your strong mayor comes in. Your mayor is the boss. Your mayor hires the
Has a
police
vote.
chief, hires
like you had.
has a police chief, and all like that. Now, right now, the mayor doesn't have a vote, but he has veto power. As you know, appoints certain bodies like the Planning Commission, the Cleveland Housing Authority, Shade Tree Board,
Yep.
and the council doesn't make those appointments. That's strictly for the mayor.
So the mayor makes those appointments, but the city council votes on how everything. No, they just go with the city.
They have to go with the city charter. They don't change. They can't change.
So the city manager oversees all
And of course the thinking behind the change was that if I'm fire commissioner or police commissioner or recreation commissioner, and I'm hiring somebody, I may be hiring some good old boys,
that. Sure.
and it's supposed to take a level.
And nobody's watching that commissioner. The buck stops there. So there's nobody over him. You follow me?
Well, yeah, there's. Well, you
I
mean
mean,
on the commissioner form?
on the
Commissioner
commissioner
form, yeah,
form.
commissioner form. Yeah, he can do what he wants
He
to.
can do what he wants to.
Mhm.
So I can see an advantage to both of both of them.
Yeah,
I mean, I could argue both of them.
you could hire a firefighter because he's a good ball player.
Yeah.
You know,
Or a good
and
ball.
that may have happened
Yeah.
a time or two.
Sure. Yeah. In fact, I guess it did. You had to. Yeah.
And you may have hired a
Used to
policeman.
be a fireman, you had to be a good football player at Brady.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and then a policeman, you might hire a policeman because he's just a good old boy and he can't keep a job.
That's right.
So,
So that's I could. argue
but
that.
fortunately, I think that we were lucky. I think during the form of our commission form of government, I think that everybody did a good job and were hired well.
And that's
I don't think the system was abused.
no. And I think no, not at all. Yeah, now, is there another form?
There's probably multi-forms. There's the strong mayor form with the council. Like the mayor of Dallas
Dallas, Texas.
is the same. He's got a city manager. So it's the same form we've got. Mayor of Roanoke, Virginia, same form of government we have. So some of the bigger cities still have the weak mayor form of government, if you want to call it.
I probably can't imagine how many various forms.
They are.
I mean,
But they have to be approved by the state. And again, everyone has to be voted on by the people.
so it's if you don't like it, it's our fault.
It's
or
our
whatever.
fault.
But I could argue either way. And
Yeah.
I don't believe there's any city council or city commission that could give everything its full attention part time. So that's where the city manager
yeah.
comes in. I mean, he's the manager.
Well,
Otherwise, you don't have.
Well, and then on your your commission form, if it's budget time, you want everything you want for my department.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't realize, well, there's other needs too from the other departments. So that makes a difference.
That makes a big difference. Well, let me ask you this, Tom. What's the worst thing? We said the best thing you think was the
Probably the public would say a lot of things are bad, but
I don't know of any.
I tried to, like I said, I tried to set
You were mayor how long? 27 years.
27 years, 28 almost by the time I was commissioner.
Did it seem like a long time or a short time?
Like a short time.
Like yesterday?
Yeah, well, I served on the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I had the opportunity as mayor to be among sometimes.
But you won as a strong mayor.
Yeah.
And raised your hand, and decided to be a weak mayor.
Yeah, I didn't decide that. The voters decided.
But you were okay with that.
Yeah. But I got to do a lot of things that I've never thought I'd do. I had the run of the White House on occasions, and got to do a lot of things that I could never imagine that I've done, that I would have done otherwise by being mayor.
Were you ready after you had been? You say you took you ran as mayor almost as a accident.
Governor McWhorter, if you remember, he said, McWhorter,
Democrat.
Yeah, Democrat. He said, give me a glass of milk and a vanilla wafer, and I'm ready to go to work. That's the way I felt. I was ready to go. Because being in the news business, I knew how it worked. I knew how the system worked.
But you were mayor for 2 years. And you say, okay, I'm going to sell WCLA. What are you going to do for a living? Because the mayor didn't.
Well, you're going to have to. No, the mayor doesn't make that much money.
Doesn't make any.
You got to save us. Well, you got.
So in other words, you could afford it.
I could afford it.
Yeah.
And I was glad I could.
Yeah.
And some can't. Like some of your sessions courts, not anymore, but in years ago, in some of the smaller counties, didn't have to be an attorney. Mm-hmm. We had one who ran a service station and did a lot of the court work at the service station. A good guy.
You know, I almost think that you could argue that is better. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, because you're right there with the people.
You're right there with the people.
Right there with the people.
Otherwise, you know, I could make that argument that the guy at the gas station fixing the tire and punching that thing in it, but he wouldn't know more about the law. But he would know more about what's right.
That makes a difference.
So which do you go with?
Well, if he knew what was right and did what he thought was right, the law would prevail because there would be a higher court that would reverse the decision or whatever.
In theory.
Yeah, in theory.
Yeah.
So yeah, this checks and balances to everything.
Do you think that over the years when you became mayor versus now, that the general thinking of people is different? Or
Yeah,
is
we've
it the
grown.
same?
Yeah, we've grown. More metropolitan. And, 30 years ago, you knew everybody. And you were more personable.
30 years ago, you read the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And it would say around town.
That's right. That was a big deal. Mm-hmm.
They would announce the baseball Little League scores.
And
now
the births.
The births, yeah. And so now we're just more metropolitan. Now I know the liquor license got passed, and I even built one of the liquor stores. I'm not anti-liquor store, but you could argue is progress. You know, the race to see who can get 200,000 people, or is the
Well,
or are we would we rather be in Athens or in Etowah where they don't have
well,
that?
there's not a race for 200,000 people, but there's a race for population because the census is extremely important.
Why is that? Now
It's
that's where I get confused.
Okay, it's important.
Say you live in Etowah, Tennessee, and you got one grocery store and a McDonald's, and you're 20 minutes from Cleveland.
Well, I don't know what the formula is, but just guessing, for every person who is a citizen of the city of Cleveland, there would probably come grants worth a few thousand people to each one. That's the way the grants are based on population.
Grants from who? The state?
From the state and the federal government.
And what do you do with it?
Well, if you get a grant to build a ball field, it's based on population. Sometimes you won't get a grant.
So if you're in Etowah, and I'm just using Etowah because we're both familiar with it, but it's a small town.
Yes.
And they don't have a greenway, I guess.
No.
And they
don't need it. Just walk down the sidewalk.
Well, yeah. So I could almost argue that progress and growth, is it negative?
Well, it would be not negative if it meant you were bringing merchants in to provide services you couldn't otherwise have, such as your grocery stores.
But Etowah's got grocery stores.
Well, but they don't have as many.
And so we won't.
Maybe
So we won't.
maybe merchants by clothing, things of that nature.
All right. So say I'm in Etowah, and again, I'm just bringing up Etowah. You're living there, and you've only got that one.
And you want to go to Petco?
You can't. You
You
got to drive.
got to go to Cleveland.
30 minutes to Cleveland down Lamontville 500 or whatever they call it. Everybody flies down that road and get a ticket in Calhoun and get a ticket in Charleston.
Or if you need to go to Home Depot or Lowe's to buy a product.
So, but here's my point. 20 years ago, yes, we want a Petco in Etowah, so we bring more people here, so we get a Petco in Etowah. But now, here in 2019 or 20, we don't need a Petco. They'll just bring it on Amazon.
Well, that's true too. That's happening.
So now,
well, here's another thing. You look at Home Depot and Lowe's. You had Cleveland Plywood. Great people.
Great people.
Doing
the best.
Yeah, best.
Yeah.
Providing better service than anybody.
The best there is.
Yeah. So we had those 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Your Cleveland Plywood.
So what is the progress? You see what I'm saying? Or is it a challenge to get less? Are we going the opposite?
Well, it depends on whether you want the metropolitan area or whether you want to live in smaller living, easier living. And I sort of agree that it's nice. You've got everything you need.
An Applebee's, a Longhorn.
But I remember the Rebel Drive-In was fine with me years ago.
A lot of burger.
A lot of burger. Yeah.
What was that? Lotta burger.
Yeah, lot of burger.
Lotta burger.
But you didn't.
Can you go to the Rebel now and get a lot of burger?
You can, but I don't know if it's just like it was.
It had something different.
But you had a restaurant to go to.
Yeah.
You had remember the old fort, the big old fort, where Garden Plaza is now.
Yeah.
Find a restaurant as you'd want.
Before that, it was what, the Smorgasbord?
Smorgasbord. You had.
And then it was the old fort, right?
Well, then you had the pizza place too.
Gondolier, not the.
No, on Gondolier, it was Godfather. The gangster.
It wasn't Goulash.
No.
So I don't know what the progress is.
Just depends on what you want.
I don't know.
Now, of course, jobs. And I really can't say that creating 1,000 jobs would necessarily mean you had to live right here, because if you had the jobs, they would come to it if they had to drive 50 miles.
Good point.
So it's just hard.
I don't know the answer.
And we probably never will.
We probably never will. But I do know places like Whirlpool.
But
I
but
do
you
know-
but you want progress because you want people to build.
Yeah, and I do know this. I do know that if Whirlpool was not here, and if Walker was not here, or not Walker, what's the other place?
Bacher, Bradley County.
Yeah, Walker.
Mhm.
If Whirlpool was not here, and if Walker was not here, it'd be different.
It'd be different, and
So I know that.
and there wouldn't be a need for certain services or.
Yeah. So I don't know. All I know is, I guess moving forward is better. But there could be a time when people will say, I'm going to move to Etowah. I'm gonna move to
Well,
Topeka."
you're in the building business, and look right now, people are wanting smaller lots.
Smaller lots, and
you-
smaller houses.
Yeah, used to you wanted the biggest place
Oh,
you could mow.
They wanted an acre. I remember the thing was
An
it's
acre.
over an acre.
It's got to be over an acre.
Over an
Yeah.
acre, man.
Yeah.
And they wanted a bonus room.
Always had to have a bonus room.
What's the bonus mean? Like
Just an
accidentally
extra
found it?
room. Yeah,
Accidentally found a room.
Yeah.
Made the bonus.
Maybe to cook on it.
But I don't-
Times have changed.
But
But very few people, I would say, and you know more than I do, are looking for big lots and big houses.
yeah, they say the pendulum swings the other way, and my belief is that the next thing that people are going to want is they're going to want to be 15 minutes out of Cleveland, a little more spread out in a smaller house. I think they're going to take the idea of a smaller house and the idea of a bigger lot
Mhm.
and combine those two.
Okay.
Because a 15-minute commute to Cleveland is not that big a deal. And if they can go, to Riceville or Etowah or Dayton.
Well, as you watch how people change around, you find people want a garden.
I find that people want a small garden.
Yeah,
A
right.
big
Not
garden.
a farm,
Yeah,
not a farm, but
Yeah,
rather tomatoes and a few things like that.
that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that everything is going small.
But I find more people now have got their little tillers than they used to have.
Yeah, it's almost combining exercise with productivity when you farm.
Good philosophy.
They say that if a farmer does a real good job, he's outstanding in his field.
Sure. That's very good.
So, Tom, let me ask you this: why did you?
I'm not going to chew this one until we get
you-
through because no.
Why did you retire as mayor? Because you could have kept going.
Well, I probably could have kept going, and I had people encourage me to keep going. But there's always a time to leave and ask new people to take a leadership role.
Did you want to leave on a good note?
Well, sure. I didn't want to be defeated.
Well, you weren't going to be defeated.
Well, who knows? That's the chance you have to take.
Yeah.
Somebody may say, I'm getting tired of you. Enough is enough.
Yeah. So you decided it's time.
But yeah, but I'm still involved. I'm on the I'm treasurer of the museum center at 5 Points, vice chairman of the airport authority, and I'm still staying busy.
Now we talk about the massive things that you've done, the greatest of
The museum's another thing I created with the help of a lot of people. That's my idea.
So the whole museum was almost like a red clay for downtown.
Yes,
Cleveland,
yes,
I guess.
yes. One of my campaign promises or one of my campaign goals was to have a museum in Cleveland.
Well, we got a museum. in
Because
Cleveland.
we had one in Athens, the Living Historic Museum, which was in an old school building, and I'd admit I thought when we were going to build a museum, we might have to get an old school building or somewhere. It's refurbish an old building. Never did I imagine there would be a complete new building.
There is an absolute complete new building just for that with a parking.
Mm-hmm.
That's something to be proud of.
Parking's important.
And you can have a meeting there all the time. Those events they're having at the museum.
Parking's another thing. You know, you can go to Walmart and park, walk a lot further than you do if you park downtown.
Isn't that something? People would say
People want to walk. People want to park by the front door.
when they go downtown.
Yes.
But when they go to Walmart, they're okay with. Now, why is that different?
Just mindset. It is different though.
I mean, if you map the distance between the Walmart front door and where you might
Or a mall, any mall,
any mall, because you
Same
got to
way.
walk by the veterans, the pregnant women, the handicapped, the fire lane.
Now I think shopping is changing now, as the mall has evolved into more front door parking. I think that's coming back around, front door parking, and I think the malls are going out.
So
Used to
why-
the covered mall.
Yeah, I remember when
Well,
the Village Mall. That idea evolved all the way to the Cleveland Mall.
that's right.
And then it went extinct like a dinosaur. I've not been at that mall.
Well,
in
the
10
Village
years.
Mall was new, and it was a novelty. And to me, I like the old downtown. I wish it was all shopping downtown again.
But if there's not shopping anywhere, because everything's done online, then what can go downstairs, downtown, except for some small. See, I think we're going to evolve in. There's no way that you're going to get me to start shopping for clothes and go to J.C. Penney and try on stuff and put that.
You can order it and get it delivered in a day.
And
If
if
you
I
don't
don't-
like it, you just fold it back up.
and put that tab on.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way they're going to get me to go stand at a department store and have them think I'm stealing something. I'll just stay home.
Well, obviously, with you,
Yeah,
they would think that.
Yeah, they look at
Yeah, they would think that.
Yeah. So, but what can go downtown? It's got to be stuff that you can't buy online, such as a small service,
Mm-hmm.
an entertainment, or a restaurant.
I made a statement one time that you couldn't even buy aspirin downtown.
No, can't buy that.
And Cook's Food Store was downtown. You could buy aspirin then.
Yeah.
Then they evolved out of the downtown area. But if you remember, a little satellite drugstore opened up. They were maybe 20 years ago, and to fill prescriptions, they would have a runner. They'd bring them, and when
I
you
don't
got
remember that.
when you got off work, your prescription would be filled and ready to go. But turned out people were ready to just drive to the drugstore and get it, and not have to worry about driving or walking another block or two to find your product.
Now
But you
we-
could get an aspirin.
Now we all want downtown to be like a Norman Rockwell painting. But what has got to happen to get people to go down?
You've got to have services people want. You've got to have something somebody wants. You've got to have desire.
Such as food
Mm-hmm. Entertainment.
and entertainment. That's it. There's nothing. Who wants to go downtown and get their tonsils?
No.
I mean, so it's got to be fun. It's got to be food or
Entertainment.
entertainment.
I agree.
And so if you want to do food and you're going to cook, you've got to get over the hurdle of the building inspection. And they're not going to let you cook in there.
And you've got to have food that it's a little different. Somebody.
Yeah, you can't,
Wants.
like gardeners, they do good.
Mm-hmm.
I bet that's a struggle for them to
Well, all
keep
of our
it interesting.
all of our downtown restaurants are unique. They're all unique.
You have to be unique.
Mm-hmm. It's just a niche that you have to cover.
if you were trying to revitalize downtown Cleveland and money was no object, what would you do?
Well, the first thing I would do was to take would be to support the woolen mill, because I've seen this type thing in other cities, and old mills that I think people look at the ambiance, I guess, of nostalgia. They like nostalgia, and I think that is nostalgia
and unique.
And unique, and fills a void. Now, this would take a lot of downtown traffic, a lot of downtown merchants and merchandising in a small place. It's consolidated rather than up one street and another street.
Well, another thing,
it's sort of like the mall, but I think it's different because it is nostalgia.
You would enjoy just the trip. If you go to the mall and you've got to park the ways away and all that stuff, you're just trying to get inside the store.
Mm-hmm.
And if you went down there, what you're saying is you would enjoy walking to the store. Therefore, I'm going to go.
Yeah, I enjoy looking at the stuff on the side of the road. Yeah, it makes a big difference.
To get people there.
Mm-hmm.
So if like the woolen mill, see, to me, that's the place, if it was upgraded, would be bringing everybody across Inman Street,
and
which they really hadn't done.
No, and that would be the way to really revitalize. There I am again. Got the COVID again.
Yeah, revitalize.
To downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah, to make it happen again.
But now, when you say, how could the Cleveland help them? I know they're supposed to put up
the parking would be very important.
All that.
Yeah, I got the grant for that before I went out of office.
Oh, for a parking lot for the Sethra. Was it Sethra?
No, well, it's for park and ride.
Oh, parking, yeah, to go to Chattanooga.
Yeah,
now that would bring some people down.
That does two purposes. That would help you park and ride and save gasoline, and would also have a paved parking lot to make it attractive for the people to come.
Because there's no parking down there. In fact, when you go down there now, you say, hey, go
Nobody
down
wants
there.
to park on the gravel and the mud
gravel.
and everything.
There's a mud puddle and
Mm-hmm.
it just,
and Dr. Coleman has invested a lot of money to make it happen.
He's done a really good job.
But he can't do it by himself.
So you're, of course, we can't give him money, but you can. Well, with that parking lot, when did you get that approved?
Been what, 3 years ago?
3 years ago.
3 years ago.
A grant.
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem?
Well, I think the problem is that there's some people probably that had another recommendation or two to make for a parking lot, and I think the grant, and don't hold me to that, I think the grant actually ran out, but it was revisited and redone, reapproved. But I think some people were talking about other places to park, which just didn't make sense.
That don't make sense.
It was just a place to park, but this is a place to do business and park.
Yeah.
Same thing. This was a perfect match.
And free.
Yes, and what Dr. Coleman's trying to do.
I know one thing. Whatever he's trying to do, he studied it.
He has looked at it.
He's that kind of a guy.
And living downtown is becoming a thing too. And that happened at the Woolen Mill, I guess, before any other places we had downtown.
It really did.
Mm-hmm. If people can live downtown and not necessarily work downtown, but play downtown and eat downtown after hours and weekends, it's a good match.
Well, I don't want to go anywhere downtown because I feel like I don't have anywhere to park. And so that would help. That grant.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you. I've never found a place that I couldn't park within a block.
Well, yeah, but what I'm thinking is
And I don't care. I'm not trying to park at the front door. If I can park a block away, my gosh, you go to Chattanooga and try to park.
Oh yeah, you
can
can
go 5 or 6 blocks.
That's asking too much.
Mm-hmm.
But what we need downtown is places to go of an evening to eat or to entertain.
Or noontime to eat
And
too.
the only place to do that is through restaurants. And they can't, there's a lot of rules about revitalizing.
Yes.
I mean, there again, that's my business. You just almost can't do it. It's just almost not because of all the fire rules and stuff like that.
Yeah, because nothing was ever built just for a restaurant.
No,
so
and if something burned, it could burn the whole, thing down. But
wiring has to be changed, and not just your regular wiring that you got in the building, but the wiring for the restaurant.
yeah,
Makes a difference.
yeah, it's almost impossible. So what are you going to do now, Tom? Now that you're retired,
I'm gonna get over the COVID first. Where I'm not.
you're over that.
Well, I'm still dumbing up my words a little bit.
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, you noticed it, Timer. You corrected 2 or 3.
Yeah, but that was normal. So
Just enjoy life. Have coffee with you.
have coffee. Down at the mill, are they closed?
They're closed. I don't think they're looking to reopen, but I think they're looking for somebody else to reopen.
Now the guy that owns that owns the pet store next door.
Owns the pet store and the kennel store, and
Did he buy all that from?
yeah, I think he bought those as a condo affair from Dr. Coleman.
So he owns 3.
I believe he owns
3
it,
units,
yes.
I think.
Then
I
you got
guess
you got the dance place down there,
And they pay common area maintenance.
I would
guess,
think so.
or
I'm not.
something like
I don't
that.
know just how that
So
works.
he's wanting somebody to buy the mill.
No, not the mill, the coffee shop.
Yeah, I wonder what he wants for it.
I don't know.
I mean,
You'd be nice. You'd be good to have that guy free coffee all the time.
yeah,
It's a bonus.
that saved me $10 a day.
Yeah, do that.
That's a nice place to go.
It is.
It's quiet, isn't it?
I tell you, these coffee shops since school's back, you can't get in one certain times of day.
No, I like the Lassiter's coffee.
Lassiter's Thursday, you couldn't get in it.
I probably like their coffee as better as anybody. But it's
Is
so,
there any difference? Is there
Yeah, I
any?
think
Is there a difference
I
in
think
coffee?
there's a Starbucks coffee is really good.
I still go back to McDonald's for $1.
McDonald's, it depends on if they've made it fresh or not.
Well, yeah,
But
but their
Starbucks-
volume, it's going to be fresh.
But for $3, Starbucks is perfect coffee. Now, the Lassiter has a very unique taste that I really like, but it's so loud in there.
Yeah.
It's like if they put some rugs down or something to dampen the sound.
Well, sometimes they're just studying and they are quiet, but
Yeah,
then
you just never know.
in the afternoon it's.
But Tom, are you going to? You're not going to do nothing but just retired. You're not.
That's all.
What do you think?
Work on the airport authority and the museum.
That's enough. Isn't it?
Yeah, that's enough.
What about the new mayor, Kevin? He's doing a good job.
Doing a good job.
Great job.
Good friend of mine.
He is. He really cares.
Well, we got a little controversy because I endorsed him with the newspaper, but that's been done.
Is that illegal?
No, it's not illegal. It's been done over the years.
Yeah, everybody endorses
Yeah.
somebody. Everybody wants somebody's endorsement.
I think somebody just got a little tight under it.
So when you endorsed him, he was your pick.
Yes.
Well, he's done a good job.
Yeah, we in early January, before my term ran out, he came to my house. We'd already talked about it a time or two, but we made the decision that we would go up and fill out the application from the Election Commission, and that Sandra and I would endorse him and be the first to sign the petition, and that's what we did.
Now he stepped down from the, what was he?
Now he's still the Church of God
I
headquarters.
mean, representative.
Yeah, state representative. He stepped down.
Had he retired from that or what?
He was retiring at the same time he got elected as mayor.
Now, why would you? To me, that would be a.
Well, there's traveling to Nashville that I guess people get tired of after so long.
Could you ever see yourself running for a higher office?
No, but I did travel to Nashville a lot. I was vice chairman of the Tennessee Advisory Commission in governmental relations.
Have you hit your 70s yet?
Yes, bingo. But I traveled. I resigned on that before I resigned as mayor because I was just getting so tired of traveling so much.
But it's like this. If I slow down building, try not to take any more jobs, I'm finishing up, and I'm seeing 3 or 4 months ahead where, hey, I'll be caught up then. I get a nervous wreck.
There's no catching up on yours.
I get a nervous. I get absolutely.
No, you can't. You can't catch up.
So, how do you deal from going from that busy world to nothing? Doesn't it? I can almost, when I'm not real busy, I can almost classify myself as depressed, but I don't. So, have you gone through that from being Tom Rowland, the mayor?
I've gone through a point of maybe being a little bored, and you know, Colonel Corn's another example. Colonel Corn, when he retired as attorney, had an office at the chalet, next to the chalet, and that his philosophy was that I had a secretary. He went in, I think, at 7 or 8 o'clock every morning, worked till noontime. He wrote letters of congratulations to people who made the news and things like that. He said that kept him busy. He had hours to go to, had a place to go to. I'll never forget that.
Now, wasn't there an old businessman in Cleveland that would, after he retired, he would dress up in a suit, go eat breakfast, go downtown to his $200 a month office, walk to the post office, check his mail, go back, take it back, and go home?
I don't remember that one.
What was his name?
I remember the gentleman who owned the little clothing store downtown that would walk with his 2 or 3 hunks of coal in a bag that he kept the coal furnace going on to keep it warm. And
That's not Eddie Cartwright.
no, well Eddie's does. But when Wild River was being filmed, everybody was trying to buy nostalgia clothing.
Yeah.
And he had a bunch of it. It was old. He didn't want to sell anything. So he just closed down the time they were filming so they wouldn't ask him to buy anything.
What was that
I can't think of his name.
What was that guy?
But I could see him about every day.
It wasn't Osmond.
No, wasn't him. I could visualize him and picture him
So,
about every day.
what do you just go to these 2 meetings? I mean, Mayor Brooks took office when?
2018 in September.
So by the time you would have started getting bored, you got COVID, basically.
Yeah, after about 2 years.
Yeah.
COVID. Maybe that's what gets you. That's what gets COVID. Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Who knows?
Yeah. So are you going to?
I won't say I really got bored, but I like to do something. I'm like you are.
You got to stay busy.
Because you're gonna make money when you're busy, but that you don't care about that.
I've always heard a saying, if you fall forward. So you just got to keep moving and trying to progress, or I don't know. It just doesn't seem to. That's just nature.
Yeah.
Water runs downhill. So what are you going? You have no aspirations for running for office.
No.
Because you could.
No, not at all.
It's legal.
It's legal.
You would win.
I don't know about that, but I've got no. That's
but
out of the question.
It's legal. You'd probably win, and you're not interested.
I don't even want to go to the liar's table.
Don't even want to go to the liar's table.
They have strict hours.
They have strict
They
hours.
do that, don't they?
7
To whatever.
10.
Yeah, and sometimes the lunch runs into it. Yeah.
and they don't even like it. We don't even like each other.
No, they don't.
No, just one waitress came over one day and said something about something, and somebody said, "Hey, we don't even like each other." Well, Tom, I really appreciate.
I've enjoyed
you
this.
coming.
This will be neat.
I think
neat.
you're absolutely. I was telling somebody the other day, Tom Rowland is one of the top 5 names that I've known my whole life, as far as the people in charge. And
Well, that's nice.
I mean, you know, from my generation, that's all we've known. So
And it has been a generation.
from my generation,
There are people.
you became when? Mayor when?
1991.
All right, 1991.
Well, see, there are people who were in the first grade in 1991 that have graduated from high
From
school.
my generation, me being 54, Tom Rowland has always been what we felt like was, I don't know,
And
the government.
yeah,
Let's face it, the government.
there are people who haven't known another mayor.
I've not known the government. People talk about death row or Schultz.
Schultz.
I didn't know none of that. All we have known is Tom Rowland, with absolutely nothing bad to say.
Integrity and all that. Yeah.
Everything. I mean, everything. So I don't know what you attribute that to, but
Probably a good wife that's smart.
well, probably so. And she's Tammy's.
Tammy's sister.
I always forget that.
Well, when Tammy was 16 years old,
Tammy Bentley.
when Tammy
Bentley, George McCoy works with George
but Tammy was Sandra's 16-year-old birthday present, who she thought would get a car. Instead, she got a sister,
So she's 16 years
Yes.
older. Now there's another sister, right?
Pam. Pam's middle.
Now where do I know her from?
She's retired, and she's not around a lot, but you may know her.
I think I know her.
Pam Johnson.
But I always forget.
Forget Tammy.
I forget and I know Tammy real well,
Yeah.
but I forget. But anyway, Tom, just for me
Thank
and
you for having
everybody
me.
else, we really, you're really a legend, and absolutely.
Thank you, sir. It's been fun. Now I can eat my candy bar now.